Welcome to another exciting episode of the Epic Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Brad Sugars, the Chairman and CEO of Action Coach, and today we're diving into the minds of some credible business leaders, uncovering their real stories, strategies, and the secrets behind their victories. It's not just about success, it's about the journey, the hurdles, and turning challenges into opportunities. So let's jump right into it.
Today, we are thrilled to welcome a very special guest, Martin Lockyer, from none other than the Financial Times' fourth-ranked financial planning firm in the UK. Martin, it's great to have you with us. And let's dive into the top 3 things you did that made you successful in business and how others can follow in your footsteps.
Right, well, top 3 is always hard. Even with our coach, I always struggle to get down to top 3. So I might have 4, so bear with me. And it's also funny hearing the words top player, then Martin Lockyer, but there you go. I think probably number 1 is putting your values first. So I think understanding what your values are and then letting them lead your way through business, the ups and the downs. They drive everything, recruitment, how you go to market, how you treat your customers, how you treat your suppliers, how you treat your staff, how you treat your business partners.
How many values do you have in your business?
6. Yeah, and they closely mirror my personal values, although they're more of an articulation of them that are fit for commerce, and obviously everyone in the business has to hold to them.
All right. And you mentioned in terms of your team, so you recruit people based on those values. Yeah, values first, capabilities second. Brilliant. And when it comes to values, given that those are your core values for your business, what's been the longest, I would say, employee you've had based on those values in your business?
There are 6 people that in the firm that were there on the day that I started nearly 35 years ago. So that's pretty long term. My business partner and I started on the same day in a much bigger company, like a big insurer, in September 1989. But for employees or for one of our financial planners, there's a guy called Jamie. I recruited him directly from university 29 years ago. So he's probably the longest standing, if you like, person within Westminster.
All right. And what's your second value that you have on your list?
The second value. Integrity would then be, independence is our second value at Westminster. So that's not just independence in terms of great financial planning, independent of providers. It's also not being driven by third-party shareholders to act in a way that's outside of those values. It's, you follow a system, a bit like an Action Coach, you follow a system, but you've still got independence of thought, independence of how you go to market, independence of how you might treat individual customers.
All right. Okay. And let's go to your third value.
Oh, so are we going to stick on values? Right. Okay.
Yeah, let's go on.
Accountability.
All right.
Okay. And that means different things to different people, but we try to codify them. To me, it means I do what I say to the best of my ability, on time, every time. Yeah. And responsibility goes hand in hand with that.
Okay. So tell me, you've started this business, you mentioned about 35 years ago.
Well, it took 24 years for Westminster, 35 that we've been working together, but many professional services, I think you come from banking, don't you?
I do indeed, yes.
Yeah, so if you've got banking or financial services clients, they'll have come often from a big house, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Citigroup, and then they'll set up a thing on their own. And it's the same with lawyers, accountants, dentists, financial planners. It's really similar. So we set up on our own 24 years ago.
Brilliant. And it's been a long journey. So talk to me, what's been your core values in getting you out there? What's been your goals that have got you from 2000 till 2024? So,
that was one of the on my list of what's got me there, which is I'm really goal driven. I have been since I was a kid, and I think being able to articulate them and get them down on paper and be held accountable, right? You know, you have to have the whole gamut for goal setting, and just kind of using that in keeping with your values, and that's what keeps you going when you think the lights might get turned off, or it's what keeps you going when, you know, you have a reversal. You know, financial crisis being a pretty obvious one. You know, that was a pretty tough time in the city, right? That those 6 to 12 months immediately following that.
So, interesting point that you mentioned about your childhood. So, what's your earliest recollection of goal setting, and what sort of goals were you setting out there?
Well, do you know what? It was, I mean, they were relatively childish goals, really, because I was a child. But I do have one memory. I was either 10 or 11, and I played really high-level badminton. And I played for Essex Schools. I was in the England school squad. But there was a guy at Essex Schools, and he was older. Well, he was the same age as me, but he looked about 10 years old, had a moustache, you know, he's about a foot taller. And I made myself a little tape so that I would do the exercises that my coach had set me. And it was like, if you do this, then you'll beat him. If you don't do this, you know, I look back at that and think, wow, I do that differently today. But yeah, that was probably, I was 10 or 11 when I did that.
Wow. And who has been the biggest influence in your life through all that journey from?
I think there are three people. One is my dad, who came along when I was 5 or 6. You know, I grew up with a single parent. He's probably the biggest influence, certainly in my formative years. And then my business partner has been he's been an inspiration. He's, you know, where I certainly used to be really kind of, you know, full on, shall we say. He's just been steady, always reliable, unflappable. But actually, through it all, probably my biggest influence has been Luke, our coach. You know, he's my best mate, but you know, he's a massive influence at school, massive influence, you know, during those kind of 5 or 6 years between leaving school and we go off and do our own things. And even when I started out financial planning, he was really influential. And as a coach, you know, we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today, probably, if it wasn't for him.
Yeah. And speaking about your dad, I mean, what kind of advice he had given you, given to where you are today, that you can recall?
The stuff that I still take today, I think probably the biggest one was family first, friends first. You know, and it's also what he did. You know, he was an accountant for a big car company, left them, and he just went commission only selling, like fleets of cars, which left us without any money, I hasten to add, for a while. But I just saw him work hard, get paid well, and that kind of put the effort in, grow, do well. That just was instilled in me rather than something he told me.
All right. And
you mentioned we learn our. Sorry, go on.
No, please carry on. You go on.
I was going to say, Clayton Christensen, which is How Will You Measure Your Life? I don't know whether you've ever read that, but one of the things he talks about is that kids take on values through looking at things. They don't take on values when you're telling them about your values, that they need to see it in action.
Okay. And is that the same for your company and the team and everyone working out there?
Yeah. I mean, it's pointless having a list of values, isn't it? And then you go over here and you don't hold to them on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis. They're all well and good until you suddenly don't behave in accordance with your values. And we have a system whereby I'd always encourage someone to pull me up or pull any of our leadership team up if they're not acting in accordance with those values.
Totally. And you mentioned Lucas, he's your childhood friend. And when did you actually start interacting with him as your coach, engaging him as your coach?
He took his Action Coach franchise 12 or 13 years ago. And I sat down with him and we were talking about which franchise he should take, because he was looking at different franchises, and he'll probably shoot me for saying this, but one was a chocolate franchise, and I said, man, you should not be getting a chocolate franchise, mate. But he took an Action Coach franchise, which I thought was brilliant, Because first and foremost, as a coach or as a financial planner, right, people have got to like you. If they don't like you, they don't realise that you care, why would they listen to what you've got to say? And I said to him all along, I think, if you take this, people like you, you're going to fly, which he has done.
Okay. And did you ever see that interfering with your friendship? Because you said you've been childhood brilliant, so you'll totally switch off and get into coachy mode on that. Well,
yes, there's the but, which is a plus but, not a but that's not true. He's with every single one of your clients, you want the best for them, right? You want them to get their best outcomes for their business. With us, he's got the added incentive that he loves me. So he wants the best for me as a human, as well as for the best for me as a coach, as a coach-client, sorry.
Excellent. And now, you mentioned something about goals. And I'm pretty sure when you talk to your clients, it's all about goal setting for them, for their financial goals. Talk to me about your goal setting. What do you do in terms of goal setting? What's your process?
Well, I'll tell you what, if I just pick you up on their goals, first of all, is that the majority of people that we deal with, fortunately for them, have either got really great income or they've built up assets. But they mainly come to us without understanding what that money might mean to them in terms of their future goals, right? It's just a blob of money. And so that's why we focus on understanding what their objectives are and then seeing if what they've got will translate forward into those objectives. So, and it's the same with, if that makes sense, yeah, because that way, many people are beholden to their money, and there's no need to be. It's, you want to be free from your money and it just serving you. And I think the same with goal setting. I've got a process that I go through, which I'll share it with you. You're happy if you give it on to anyone, by the way. It's probably, if I've got a superpower in business, it's probably goal setting. I follow a process. I start with what I want to become. That's probably most important. It's, the person I want to be. What do they look like? I then think about what I am. Brad often talks about it. It's what you say to yourself about yourself when you're by yourself, right? So I look at those affirmations. Then they're always true, though. That they're never made up, because otherwise I'm like a little boy whistling in the dark. I then set down everything I want. I just put it all on paper. That's the way I do it. I then break those down into 1, 3, 5, 10-year plus goals. Most of them aren't. I end up spending more of my time when I mentor people or when I coach people in work or when I'm speaking to clients, getting away from money and things and talking about the things you want to achieve, the things you want to learn, what you want to become, the skills you want to develop. So I tend to map it out that way. And then I've got a process of turning that into habits and having questions where people like Luke can hold me accountable.
Amazing. So you have your vision, what you want to be, you write it down into 1, 3, 5, 10, and then you make it into habits and you go and achieve them.
Yeah.
And you also have your coach to hold you accountable. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And do you follow this in your practice too at WWM?
Yeah. So, it's the number of times we sit down in a session and Luke will say, is this part of your 90-day plan? How's that going to get you to your one? And you go, oh yeah, it's not really. Or how important is that? Is that to you? I was like, very important. Why haven't you done anything about it? I don't know. That's okay. That's why coaching works, right? Because we're held accountable.
Indeed, it does. Yes, and accountability is key for coaching and for the clients too. Now, talk to me about. You did mention an important point about goal setting and the person you become. What would happen if you were not following that process? Where would your firm be today? And what advice you would give to entrepreneurs?
So, I think there's two things. I've always set goals, so I don't know I can't imagine what the firm would be like, so I can't imagine not setting goals. I think there's what we'd be like if we hadn't had coaching. That's a different question. So, I mean, the fact is, if my goals were all about money, how much money can I get, how much stuff can I have, then I'd be a diminished character today, right? And I believe the firm would be far less, because we'd be attracting people who are interested in money, not about people's outcomes. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does. And talk to me, what's your vision for the future for Westminster?
I think the simple version is, to become the number one chartered independent financial planning firm in the UK. That's it in a nutshell.
By when?
That's within the next 8 years, because that'll take me to 65.
Okay.
And I don't think I will sign off at 65, but if I were to, I'd want to leave that on the table. And it's really interesting, because we were voted fourth this year out of about 5,000 firms, and that's against some pretty big players, the UBSs and the Barclays Wealth, and kind of giant players. And if we were voted number one tomorrow, that'd be nice, but it's not enough for me or for my leadership team. We want to be number one. Yeah, great external validation, but there's so much that we want to do within the firm. So we've got really clear points of vision over the next 3 years. We've got a clear target market. We want to be the very best place for someone like you to come and take advice, and for someone like me to deliver first-class financial planning. So the two have to go hand in hand.
And you'll have Lucas to hold you accountable.
Yes.
Right.
If he's watching this, I'm sure he'll pick me up on it on Thursday.
Now, if we look at your journey from 2000 till where we are today, 2024, what has been your biggest challenge and how did you overcome it?
I think for all entrepreneurs, your biggest business challenge and your business personal challenge, sometimes it's like the two are fully intertwined, right? So I think business-wise, we just moved out of London. I'd raised in London. We'd moved out of London down to the south coast, and on the day we moved in to our new place down in Poole, was the day that I first heard the words, "This is a global financial crisis," and that was really discombobulating, because I think you were still in banking then, right? So
I was, yes.
I remember the front page of the FT. There was that black thing with a kind of dark moon, and I think it said the death of capitalism or something like that, and it was like, wow, this is pretty big. And I think with that, it was very much coming back to all those things I've just said. My goals hadn't changed, my values hadn't changed, the team around me, which was also on my list of things, that hadn't changed, and actually I've got a duty to them as the leader of or co-founder of the firm. So none of that had changed, and it was just about, right, I've got to just get up, put one foot in front of the other. Do we need to take action? What's the next step? And we just carried on going forward. I think the biggest challenge I had through it all was I just got married, I think it must have been, 2002, like early 2000, just before my birthday. And as I said, I was quite a mercurial character, always on value, but I partied, shall we say, a bit too much, and my wheels fell off, right? From that prospect, and I've not had a drink for 22 years, so that's how I overcame it. I just had to stop it. We might be in a poorer shape did we not have Luke, but if I was still behaving like that, then we'd be I wouldn't have a business or a wife for that matter. So. That's my journey, right? It's I think everyone though has things that we all have things that we know are bad for us. Whether it's whatever you might do, it might be just be goofing off when you should be getting on the phone in your business, or whatever your version of it is. It's keep going back to things that harm us when actually they don't serve us at all well.
Understood. And talk to me how you obviously have Kevin in your life too, who's stabilizes your kind of peaks and troughs in your journey. How important is that for you right now, having Kevin over there?
Well, I think again, one of the reasons why we've done so well is that really early. So what normally happens is you'll see it in firms of lawyers. Let's say you've got two great lawyers. They form a partnership. They form a law firm. But they're both so busy doing their lawyering. And one of the things we did really early doors, and I generated quite a lot more of fee work than Kevin, and I just said, look, this doesn't work. We've got the business 50-50. I'm going to give you 50% of all my income. You give me 50% of all your income. And actually, I just then focused on the business, right? And he focused on predominantly dealing with clients. And so early doors, I definitely needed that stability. When I then stopped, being me, the version 1 of me, I had to, because my demands on my time and my demands on my brain were so high as a business owner in a regulated environment. That's the path I had to tread. So he enables me to focus on the biggest things that help him then deliver to, the clients that we look after. So he looks after the majority of the clients that I've developed over the years.
Right. And speaking of the biggest things, let's go back to 18th of April of this year.
Yeah.
What happened out there? Tell us more.
So we'd Luke, we'd gone through it with Luke. He said, look, I think you should go for, you could win any of these particular categories. I was like, okay, well, look, let's put in submissions, right? And what I would say, I know you haven't asked the question, but I'll say it anyway. If you're a coached client, right, going through the process of putting in an award really made me evaluate certain parts of the business, which I perhaps hadn't thought about. It's like, what do I put down there? How do we articulate that? And that will stand us in really good stead for the next year, just in terms of thinking about things differently. So we went in for a 5 or 6 maybe different categories. And obviously on the night, I'm really excited. I'd really like to win one, because everyone does,
yes.
Right? But I had my leadership team with me, and we were finalists in 5 categories or 6 categories, which is amazing in itself. But as they were going through, and it was like, we were finalists in Best Overall Company. I was like, and then we were finalists in Best Customer Services. And then we were finalists in Best Best Services-Based Company. And I remember thinking, I'm going to win the CEO. And, genuinely, when they read my name out, my thought, and I've cheered at everything I've ever won, ever. If it's a hand of cards against my mum, I'll be cheering, right? And my shoulder, I almost had my head in my hands. And that's because so much of what we do is around investing in our people. It's so team-based. And it felt, my immediate thought was, I feel embarrassed about this being about me. And then the lady next to me, she comes from Leeds, so she hit me in the arm and said, look, wait, own it. And I was like, all right, Sam. And suddenly I just thought, actually, the reason why I've been given this award, which is a great honour, by the way, because that's against some stiff competition, right? Top CEO or whatever top CEO of the year. I like to think best person of the year, but yeah. And that was because my submission it wasn't really about me. It was about the people who've been in my life. It was about the people I've surrounded myself with. It's about how we've, always paid as much as we could afford to get the very best people. And our people, and they stay with us, right? I think we've lost one financial planner in 15 years, maybe. I've never, touch wood, lost a member of my executive team. That's how I felt. In the end, I came around to thinking, actually, I've won this award because we've placed finalists in all these other categories, not because they think Martin Lockyer is especially brilliant.
Brilliant. Excellent. Do you remember what Steve Mulhern told you after your speech?
Oh, he said, you're better looking than me. No, he didn't. He actually came up to me the next day because I was quite concerned that when I started talking about it, I might sound ungrateful. And he just came up to me and said, that was by far and away the best speech. He said it came straight from your heart, which is great to hear, because it did. I hadn't rehearsed anything. A bit like this, unfortunately.
And that's that's your fourth value, right? When you said you won it for the team, it's your fourth value, which is the team, right?
If you've ever read Who Not How, I've been, unbeknownst to me, until I read Who Not How, I've been working and living a Who Not How life. You know, it's my first thing will be, who do I know that can fix that for me? And, you know, coming back to coaching, I think quite often the first time an entrepreneur, often the first time they really engage with a coach properly, is the first time they're going, I've thought about how, I can't get to the bottom of the how. And they actually go and find a who that can help them with finding the next who, rather than always going through the how.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does indeed.
Right.
So the first thing I asked you, what are the top four things? And top three things, but you wanted four. So it's values, independence, accountability, and team. Have I got that right?
Well, yeah. So independence is one of our values. So values, I had team, I had goal setting. Yeah, and say feel free to share that with your clients or anyone else. That's yeah, brilliant. And the other one was lifelong learning.
And tell me, lifelong learning, how has that shaped your life?
Well, do you know what? I was a really good student. Like, I was a strong academic. Not a good. I wasn't a good student. That's a lie. I was academically inclined. I wasn't a good student. There's a difference, right? And that's probably the biggest impact that Luke's had on me. In actual fact, he really rekindled. I probably spent 10 years of just doing. I got better, and I learnt more about my trade, and I knew about the financial markets and economics. You know, I'm a mathematician, but originally, but I hadn't really become much more. And what Luke did really quickly is, however he did it, he kind of rekindled a love of learning. But more importantly, I could see that learning was directly kind of correlated to the success that I might be able to enjoy.
How many hours a week or day do you learn or read?
I still read lots of geopolitics and economics. I find that interesting. So I probably do that for 45 minutes to an hour in the morning. And then I'll tend to read 2 books. I'll read something which is specific for half an hour or so. What am I reading at the moment? Do you know what? I've just finished rereading They Ask You Answer, because I'm about to start reading visuals. So I just wanted to recap on They Ask You Answer. So I'll read something which is really targeted, and then often I'll then read something which is more personal philosophy based. So I'm just finishing off Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, which is a wonderful read, actually. So that will probably be about 2.5 hours, and then I'll normally read for a half an hour, or I'll listen to something for half an hour before I go to bed. Might listen to some podcasts. But yeah, so at least a couple of hours a day.
Brilliant. And final question, Martin, what is the top piece of advice you got or would you give to another entrepreneur?
Right, well, I'm going to be cheeky again, because I'll go with the top piece of advice I got.
Tell me more.
Or the one I can remember is kill monsters while they're small. And I didn't really used to like confrontation that much. I don't seek out combative confrontation, but what I do know is that when I get on top of things quickly, I have better outcomes, both personally and for the business and for the person that I'm having that confrontation with. So that was, you don't wait for them to grow up into big monsters, basically. That was really great advice. And the bit of...
Who gave that to you?
It was a guy called Tom, who was our divisional director about a billion years ago even, a long while ago. And that stood me in good stead. And the other one was that the one I'd give to people is this, it's one of my mantras. It's amazing how much you can achieve when you don't mind who gets the credit. And I don't know who gave that to me, but I can't take credit for coming up with it, but I don't know who gave it to me. But it's, when I'm asked for something, that's we can end up making ourselves the hero, far too often. And actually, empowering people because of what they've done. You get more from them. I get more by giving people more credit.
Brilliant. And I think that's why you dedicated that speech when you won the CEO of the Year award to your team.
Well, it's how I feel. So I think if you do things enough, it becomes what you are. You're not consciously, give credit here. You might have to start that way, but eventually that becomes how you go about your life.
Brilliant. Excellent. Martin, thank you very much for all that. It's great having you.
It's been a pleasure to be on here.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today's epic conversation here on Epic Entrepreneurs. Huge thanks to our amazing guest for pouring their heart into sharing their journey. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button, leave a review, share it, or hit that bell. But until next time, let's make sure you keep dreaming, take massive action, and stay epic.